Hi, welcome back and thank you for joining me. So, some of you will have seen my last video, which I was really kind of introducing and discussing the features of the HumminGuru ultrasonic record cleaner, which we've got here, as you can see. Now, that's a bit out of character for my channel. But the reason I wanted to do that is because I have previously done a video on record cleaning, which I'll put a link to up here, and ultrasonic record cleaning is obviously the kind of the system that's sort of in vogue at the moment, and everyone's talking about, and reputedly it's the way to go, and it does do things that other forms of record cleaning can't do. And I have, as I've mentioned in previous videos, I have actually experimented with two different ultrasonic cleaners before now. The Kermas system and also the Kuzma kind of kit, which goes on top of a generic tank to turn it into an ultrasonic record cleaner. And in both those instances, they were I sort that out because I had records which I've cleaned on my Lorrycraft, which, the important thing there really is that it's a fluid, manual, chemical kind of cleaning with a vacuum removal of the fluid. And by doing that, in a few instances, I wasn't able to get the record as clean as my kind of gut feeling or intuition, if you like, led me believe that was possible. And in both instances, the ultrasonic cleaning did actually do what I suspected and hoped that it would do. So there is clearly something that ultrasonic can do that other forms of record cleaning can't. And yeah, that's why I'm looking at this HumminGuru. And the reason for splitting it into two videos is because I think this one might get quite long, because what I'm going to try and do is explain how I did the tests and obviously what my conclusions are. And I think how I did the tests is quite important. And there are other sort of side factors: fluids, surfactants, solvents, all that sort of stuff, detergents, rinsing and forms of drying. It's all relevant to record cleaning, and I think you can hear the differences, and that's why it warrants talking about. So to crack on with it, so with what I did with this, one of the things, the first things I did was take a brand new record that was still sealed, and give that a quick, once-off clean. And every record that comes into my house would have that, when previously had that on my vacuum machine. And so I chose two records, one a double, so that was three discs, if you like, to try this out. And unusually for me, I played them without cleaning. I wouldn't normally do that because I think it gunks up your stylus to some degree. But I gave all six sides, if you like, a play without cleaning, then cleaned the stylus again. And then I cleaned three of those sides on my Lorrycraft with my chosen record cleaning fluid, which is, incidentally, it's Clear Audio Pure Groove. And do bear that in mind, because from previous experiences with vacuum machines, I actually think that the fluid makes more difference than the actual vacuum machine. And again, we'll get onto this and the importance of fluids and how you're cleaning later on. So yeah, I played all six sides without cleaning. Cleaned three of them with the Lorrycraft and compared those to cleaned and uncleaned, and then put them all into the HumminGuru and gave them an ultrasonic clean and compared the sides. Well, first of all, the side that hadn't been cleaned on the Lorrycraft, so it's sort of virgin record, brand new, versus HumminGuru cleaned, comparing that to a Virgin record versus Loricraft cleaned, and also, of course, I had a Virgin record versus a record that had been cleaned once on the Loricraft and then once on the HumminGuru. And the results were very interesting there. And they did vary from disc to disc because, you know, there will be different amounts of contaminants on records, even on a double album. The one in question, disc 1, definitely sounded a little brighter than disc 2. I can't explain that. That might be down to the pressing. Just don't know. But there was a very subtle difference in sort of an overall quality, if you like. But the results of that were pretty consistent. With the HumminGuru, one clean on the HumminGuru made something between no perceptible difference and a lightening up of the top end, a cleaning up, opening up of the sort of the ambience, the feeling of decay on cymbals, the air and the life and the light in the recording, and also to some degree sort of clearing a sort of a layer of sort of fudge around the bottom, adding texture to bass notes and freeing up the sort of the verve and the sort of the life of the recording dynamically, the timing, so to speak. So that was the HumminGuru. By contrast, the sides that had been cleaned on the Loricraft with the clear audio fluid, the effects were similar, albeit slightly less of that sort of sparkly kind of very top end sort of clarity, but they were more apparent. So, you know, to cut to the chase, the HumminGuru isn't as effective in just a one-off clean on new uncleaned records as a chemical clean on a vacuum machine. But then there's a very, very interesting postscript to this, which is the sides that had had the chemical clean, and then subsequently, obviously, you know, you can only clean both sides on a machine like the HumminGuru. So those sides that had had the chemical clean initially, then subsequently, whether I liked it or not, got an ultrasonic clean, and they were better again, and noticeably so. All the benefits of the chemical clean, plus that sort of real polish and openness at the top end that sort of, you know, makes the difference between a sort of a misty, well-used old piece of glassware and a brand new cut lead crystal glass. You know, it's that kind of difference. So that was the effect with cleaning, sort of just with a one-shot cleaning of a new uncleaned record. And the other thing I need to mention here is that on the HumminGuru here, as you see, you've got 2 segments for the cleaning, 2 segments for the auto. And I mentioned this in my previous video, which I'll link to up here. So you've got 2 or 5 minutes of ultrasonic cleaning in either clean mode or auto mode, and you've got a selectable 5 or 10 minutes of drying. You know, to be brutally honest, the 2 minutes of ultrasonic cleaning really didn't do much to my ears, and the 5 minutes of drying definitely didn't dry the record effectively. So a quick clean on the HumminGuru is actually 15 minutes. It's 5 minutes of cleaning followed by 10 minutes of drying. So not exactly quick. A quick cleaning on the Loricraft for me is 1 minute of brushing the record cleaning fluid on, followed by a drying cycle, which is around about a minute. So it's 2 minutes aside, call it 4 minutes for the disc. Okay, so I would pretty much say that's 1-0 to the vacuum machine with chemical fluid cleaning. Although, you know, again, very, very pertinently, do bear in mind the fact that the combination of chemical vacuum clean followed by ultrasonic did eclipse the lot. Okay, so now and I point out at that point I was using just pure distilled water in here. Now the next record, which was I went on to, again, still cleaned, still a brand new record. I repeated the HumminGuru thing to give like 4 cleans, basically, consecutive cleans. Each one with cleaning it, drying it, listening to it, cleaning it, drying it, listening to it, just to see what sort of extended lengths of ultrasonic cleaning would do. And each time it had a similar effect, but it was cumulative. So let me just check my notes here. I've actually got 10 pages of notes. This was a ridiculously kind of tedious but interesting at the same time thing to be doing. So each time that I cleaned it, it did take away a bit of it took away sort of veils, if you like. Each clean, the sound got cleaner, finer detailed, more kind of open, airy, crystalline, detailed top end, more kind of pizzazz and verve to the sound, more sort of rhythmic, je ne sais quoi, more fun, more dynamic kind of freedom, if you like. But there were, no matter how many times you cleaned it on the HumminGuru, and I went up to, in the end, I went up to about 9 successive cleanings, just to sort of see where the kind of where the real effectiveness sort of, rolled off, and you got into very diminishing returns, so to speak. And I think with, pure clean water in the HumminGuru, it's about 4 or 5 cleans is really about as many as you need to do. That's not to say it's going to do the ultimate job at that point, but subsequent cleanings, the differences are tiny. But what it didn't do, which the chemical cleaning on the lorrycraft did do, even in one clean, was it did leave some sort of areas of confusion and distortion in the sort of, in a musical sense of not where you've got 2 instruments that are sort of in a very similar space in the sound stage, and have got a kind of similar tonality. There was one record I was cleaning, from Genesis to Revelation. I've actually got 2 original pressings, same matrix numbers and everything, from 1969. So, and they're very, very similar condition. I'd say VG++ or near mint. And so I kind of listened to both of them side by side initially. And I've cleaned both of them previously, like dozens of times, well, maybe half a dozen times on the lorrycraft. So I listened to them to establish like how close they sounded and how they did sound different, if you like. And one of them, actually, the voice had slightly less projection, and on the other, on that same one, actually, the piano and the guitar, which are kind of left center, they're recorded in the same sort of physical spot, if you like, in the soundstage, and the guitar is kind of, all you're actually hearing is sort of like the plectrum on the strings. You really don't hear the guitar notes, funnily enough, and that's being laid over the piano, and it just gets quite confusing and messy sounding, and that sounded slightly better on the copy, of the 2 copies that sounded, slightly better, and the voice had slightly more projection. So I actually took the one that sounded worse, and I just gave it clean after clean after clean on the HumminGuru, and listening to it each time. And even the first clean on that, and again, this is important to bear in mind, these records are records that have been chemically cleaned previously, okay? So even the first clean on that probably reverted which one sounded better, and I did up to, I think I did 9 cleans in total on that one, And now the one that sounded slightly worse sounds noticeably better, actually. So that was a really interesting test to do. But as I say, I think it was about 4, maybe 5 cleans is where the diminishing returns really kind of kicked in. Now there are other sort of things. I think really it's important to talk about traits here, and I think this sort of what I said at the start about the sort of the kind of the clarity of the top end, and I use the analogy of a glass, for instance, and then the sort of the more musical kind of stodginess. These are things I'm going to focus on a little bit more now, because the other new one of the other new records, I say, it was a double album, and I because of that I had the opportunity of trying all sorts of different. I mean, these are my notes: side 1, side 2, side 3, side 4. HumminGuru, Lorrycraft, HumminGuru, Lorrycraft, distilled water rinse, HumminGuru, blah 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 blah, and so on. And and these are my the listening notes on that are sort of 4 pages, just about that one album. But some of the things, it was a Barbra Streisand album, to be just to be honest, and basically with just this is, and remember, this is a new record, so it shouldn't, the only problem with it should be residues from the pressing process. And some people call it mold release agent, some people, whatever. But I believe, and I'm not a scientist, and I know there are people in the record cleaning business who like to put a white lab coat on and pretend that they are scientists, and I get very cautious about such things, but I just like to logically follow things through. And I have spoke to chemists, people who run polymer companies and are also audiophiles, and PVC, apparently when you press PVC, there are things, plasticizers and whatever, mold release agents within the mix, that will migrate to the surface under heat and pressure, and the purpose of that is to help them release from the mold. But you kind of want to clean those off, I think, because I think what they give, and these are listening notes that I'm talking about, this Streisand thing. So I'm writing here, played without cleaning. Barbra Streisand still sounds a little like she's got bronchitis. Lower registers of her voice are empty and stodgy. High frequencies lack. The crowd applause sounds monophonic and a bit dead. And then I've written here, gave the same uncleaned record another play. And this is a really important thing to bear in mind. Played again, slightly better, slightly brighter. And the conclusion you can draw from this, and so I know people who have said this. I mean, I think Lin Records used to, or Lin Products used to say this back in the 70s and 80s, that the best way of cleaning your records is to play them. And I know, a very favourite channel of mine, Norman Maslow, has said this before now, although he subsequently got a HumminGuru. But playing a record will clean it, and because when you're playing a record, your stylus is going through the groove, and it will act as a plough, if you like, a snow plough, and plough out some of the muck. But it's not a thorough way. It's not an accurate way. It's not a way I feel kind of like comfortable with in my sort of slightly OCD brain. But it's a fact that it will, playing a record will alter its sound, because you will be ploughing out some goo. And of course, once you clean a record chemically and vacuum dry it, or clean it ultrasonically and air dry it, stuff that's anything that's loosened or softened and not removed, so anything less than a 100% cleaning, when you then subsequently play it, that stylus will plough some of that up. And I noticed this previously when using the Kermas, for instance, that you clean a record and you play it, and it's like, holy mackerel, there's crap all over your stylus, quite visibly so. So these are all things to really consider. It's kind of quite important to consider all the factors that are at play here. Anyway, I'm trying not to ramble on too long here. So we cleaned. I mean, the Barbra Streisand we cleaned, I think, about 10 times. I mean, that's me sort of cleaning, just making a note of what clean it had, and then that's like clean by clean, listening notes, and a couple of things came out from this. Where we've got here, HumminGuru, Lorrycraft. It would be that Lorrycraft would have typically opened up that sort of the bottom end, the sort of the more stodginess. And again, I kind of like to think of this as if you think of the sound in a frequency response kind of way. Think of the sort of the upper mid and treble and extreme treble. It is like the HumminGuru would seem, if you had a dimmer switch on that, it would just be slowly turning it up. It's not like glaring at you, because it definitely cleans it up. It's not just making it louder, it's cleaning it up, that extreme top end, which adds more air and sparkle to the music, and it's a very, very pleasant phenomenon. And it has a lesser effect towards the lower and mid frequencies too. Whereas the chemical cleaning, if you think of the music as sort of particularly the sort of the bass and the lower mid range as your feet, if you like, and you're wearing boots and you're walking through a bog or like a muddy sort of stodgy landscape, and it's each step it's like arduous and it wears you out, and it's just like, that's the kind of stodgy feeling, if you like, and whilst the HumminGuru helped with that to some degree, the Lorrycraft, or any vacuum machine, I should imagine, with the clear audio fluid, and again, bear in mind what I said about fluids. That's the clear audio fluid I've chosen over trying loads and loads and loads of different fluids, and I've still got plenty in the store cupboard, and I will, if I have a gut feeling about a record, I'll use a different fluid. But the clear audio one is probably the strongest chemical record cleaning fluid that I know of. And it comes as a concentrate, which you mix in a 70-30 mix with isopropyl alcohol. So, some people wouldn't even use isopropyl alcohol on a record. And, so you're using powerful cleaners with powerful solvents. But at the end of the day, all my listening tests told me that, if you're going to clean a record, you want to clean it as effectively as possible. And that's where the clear audio fluid kind of came in. But that cleans across the spectrum too. It does open up the top end without a doubt. It cleans the top end, and I've been using it for probably 10 years or more. But it really helps down at the bottom end in sort of freeing up that sort of stodgy, the thing that just makes music sound a bit dull and lifeless and boring and tedious, and you just like, I'm not enjoying this record. It'll give it verve and pizzazz and just get up and go, really. Anyway, so those are kind of the two traits, if you like, of the two different cleaning machines. So by doing this with the Barbra Streisand, particularly going from one to the other, there was another thing which came up, which was really quite a kind of a road to Damascus moment, if you like. Now, previously, I haven't been using a rinse cycle, or rarely would use a rinse cycle on the Lorrycraft. I just vacuum the clear audio off. But when going from sort of like HumminGuru to Lorrycraft, you'd have that opening up of the bottom particularly, but the top after sort of several HumminGuru cleans, might be just beautifully kind of crystalline, sweet, silky, delightful, extended, airy. And it would just be like there's a very slight veil put across it, like someone's closed a extremely kind of fine net curtain across a perfectly clean window. And I can only surmise that that's residue of the cleaning fluid that's not being removed by the vacuum cleaner. So I then did which I don't typically do, a pure distilled water rinse on the Lorrycraft, and most of that was removed. So that kind of proved to me that if you're using a vacuum machine, I would strongly recommend you at least experiment with doing a pure distilled water rinse after you've cleaned. Hopefully you'll hear the difference, and once you've heard the difference, I mean, like me, you may think it's there, but it's subtle, and but I can't be bothered with the extra time of doing the cleaning cycle, and if that's your choice, fine. But it's worth noting that even after that, going back to the HumminGuru and giving it a pure water ultrasonic rinse, that really did it. So, even on the rinsing stages, the ultrasonic will get in there and do that absolute polishing of the glass, if you like, better than the vacuum machine. And the Lorrycraft is a powerful and high-end vacuum machine. So I think that's very relevant to the conclusions that we can make. Now, without going on too much, I repeated these experiments with dirty records. I went out and got a couple specially from charity shops for £1 and played them, which is a very, very rare thing to do, uncleaned, just maybe the first track, and then cleaned that first track with the Lorrycraft, played them again, and flipped it over, played the uncleaned first track again, and then cleaned the disc in the HumminGuru and played the thing again. And as with a brand new record, I would say that the results were pretty much the same. Obviously with a filthy charity shop record, the difference between uncleaned and cleaned was much, much, much bigger. But in all instances, and I did this on about 3 different records, in all instances, the chemical vacuum clean was actually more effective than the ultrasonic clean. But a chemical vacuum clean followed by an ultrasonic clean, or followed by an ultrasonic rinse, if you want to think of it like that, because I was using pure distilled water in here, that was the most effective of all, and again by a similar margin. So I think it'll clearly kind of show that we're homing in here on a verdict, which is that ultrasonic cleaning is very effective and very, very worthwhile, but not as a replacement for chemical and vacuum cleaning, but as a supplement, like it's dessert after the main course, so to speak. And I that's very much how I think of it. And I'll just say one other kind of thing that we've cleaned. I cleaned Tubular Bells. I did a review of not so long ago, and it's as if you saw that, you'll know that my copy is it's not in perfect condition, and we've given it maybe another, that had 4 maybe cleans on the Lorrycraft previously to sort of try and clean it up as well as I could, but it's definitely better sounding now than it ever has. But again, it's that same thing of successive cleanings on the HumminGuru would increase the sort of mostly the high-end airiness, but it also does extend down into the bass texture and clarity right across the frequency response. And I kind of come up with the analogy of if you think of a window, what the HumminGuru and my previous experience with the Kermas and the Kuzma, what they do is they clean and polish, really finely polish the glass, the window. Whereas what I'll say the vacuum machine, I don't want to keep saying the Loricraft because I think this applies to most vacuum machines. What a vacuum machine with a good, strong chemical cleaner like the Clear Audio Pure Groove does is kind of open the curtains. Now, if you've got £500 to spend on a record cleaning machine and you don't already own one, and you're thinking, shall I get a HumminGuru or shall I get a cheap vacuum machine? And there's a couple available in that sort of price range. I think there's an Okinoki and a Project, and there may be others, but those are two that I'm pretty sure are in that price band. And you're thinking, there's all the hypes about the HumminGuru now and ultrasonic cleaning, and should I get one? I'm really not sure that you should. I think the overall effectiveness of a good vacuum cleaning with a good vacuum cleaning fluid, and I do think the fluid is more important than the machine, is it's bigger than what the HumminGuru will do, even if you go through like 9 or 10. I mean, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, 12 cleans. It still won't do what a chemical clean will do. Now, that's not you can't take that as a comment on all ultrasonic machines. I just plain don't know. I've got a degritter in to test, which I will be testing next, and that's a 300 watt machine that also happens to work at 120 kilohertz, and this is at most 50 watts. And other machines like the KL Audio, for instance, which is a heck of a lot more expensive, but that's it's 200 watts, it's 4 times the power of this. So that may well have, come in and have an effect. But certainly at this end of the market, it does things that a chemical cleaning can't do in terms of just that final clarity and polish of the window, but it doesn't do everything. And if you're choosing between opening the curtains and polishing the glass, I would personally go for opening the curtains. Now, I think that sort of covers the basics of this, but there are a couple of other things I want to touch on, and I mentioned earlier. One of them is fluids. So for about the first 4 days or so, I was just using pure distilled water in this, and you could kind of see as the record goes around, as it comes up out of the cleaning slot, that the water was being repelled by the record. It wasn't sitting in the grooves. And that's down to sort of surface tension. It's just a natural phenomenon of water when it's on, plastic. PVC is a water repellent material, for instance. And then I've tried 2 different fluids. I tried a sort of a generic kind of a hi-fi intended record cleaning kind of fluid at I think it was a 0.3% solution. So, pretty weak, but it was, and this fluid had sort of chemicals, it basically is a rinse aid. And that definitely helped the cleaning, and visually you could really see the difference as the record came up. It was almost like a thick, gloopy kind of film of water over the record that stayed there all the while the record went round until it went back into the bath. And but that added, sonically on listening, that added a similar veil to the sound as the Loricraft cleaning sort of reintroduced, which I mentioned earlier. So I didn't pursue that particularly long. I cleaned a few records, and then I cleaned, took the bath out, threw that water away, washed the filter out, and put pure distilled water back in. And one quick clean with pure distilled water afterwards totally restored that clarity. So, using soaps, which is, rinse aids, they're surfactants. I mean, surfactants, detergents, solvents, soaps, they're all, I mean, one thing they all do is they all lower the surface tension. Some of them, soaps are alkaline and will grab hold of fatty deposits and sort of, clasp onto them, so to speak. They have different sort of finer points of their operation. But I do think that for cleaning, you want to use a strong cleaning detergent or solvent. And I don't think that that's safe to use those in these sorts of machines. And that's partly why my conclusion is leaning towards having two machines. Of course, for the cheapest way of doing that would be get something like a Disco Anti-Stat or a Spin Clean, fill that up with clear audio or similar fluid, give it a wash, put it in here, and give it a 5-minute ultrasonic pure water rinse, and that should work very well. Probably be the cheapest kind of thorough solution. But anyways, having tried the rinse aid, what I then did is I went back to sort of what I've been doing for decades now in record cleaning, which for decades I've been using a homemade fluid. This is before I sort of went to the clear audio pure groove. So maybe for sort of 30 years of my 40 years of record cleaning, perhaps. My recipe was, I think it was 70% distilled water, 30% isopropyl alcohol, and literally just a drip or two of Ilfitol, which is a photographic wetting agent. And, wetting agent, rinse aid, they're the same thing, to be honest. Ilfitol is used so that in the rinse stage of when you're developing your own photos, so that you don't get watermarks on your negatives or your transparencies, because they'd obviously be blown up massively when you print or project the image. So if it's good for the photographic industry, then in my book it's good for record cleaning. And I actually put 8 drips into this 350 ml reservoir of distilled water, and I measured 8 drips. That was 8 drips of essentially this dropper here. I subsequently measured that, and 8 drips weighs out at 0.1 of a gram. So it's 0.1 of a milliliter into 350 milliliters, which equates to roughly a 0.03% solution. So we're a tenth of the strength of the solution that I was previously using. And interestingly enough, that still had the beneficial, well, whether it's beneficial or not, it still had the visual effect or the physical effect of enabling the fluid to sort of cling to the record surface all the way round. But it didn't add a notable veil that would sort of lead me to want to subsequently rinse the record afterwards. So I think on the conclusion of record cleaning fluids, I would say by all means put a very, very small amount of wetting agent in here, but we're talking 0.03%. That's the tiniest amount out, because I don't think you'll hear any negative effects of that. But I think the positive effects are tangible in so much as it allows the water into the groove. Even if the ultrasonic effect is blasting past that surface tension, it means the record, which is spending 2/3 of its time out of the groove, there's more record out of the water, there's more record outside of the fluid bath when you're cleaning than there is in the fluid bath. So if in that period it's getting a soak, which is softening water solubles, etc., and enabling them to be more efficiently blasted off when they're in the bottom part of here, then that's a good thing. So yeah, I'm not going to stick my white coat on and pretend I know what the science is. All I can report on are the findings of experimentation, and I'll experiment as thoroughly as my geeky brain will enable me to. So I think, that's pretty much covering the machines, the use, the rinsing, the fluids, etc., etc. And I'm just sort of going back to my notes here because, as I say, there was a heck of a lot, and I wanted to make sure that I kind of cover everything. Okay, so going back specifically to the HumminGuru, because we're this series of videos is about record cleaning. The last one, this one, and the next one at least are going to be about ultrasonics, but this one and the last one are clearly talking about the HumminGuru, the cheapest all-in-one automated ultrasonic record cleaner. So, other notable things that I would tell you about. One, the noise. I don't find the noise of while it's ultrasonically cleaning offensive. The draining noise is pretty hideous, and the drying noise is, again, it's not offensive at all. It's not very loud, although I have to say the drying of this is not very efficient either. I mean, even after 10 minutes, there were still occasions where it wasn't properly dry. But while it's ultrasonically cleaning, my cat, Toby, went bonkers. He absolutely hates it. He won't stay in the same room. I mean, he'd run upstairs and hide under the bed or the chair. So if you've got animals, bear that in mind. It really is a kind of quite an important thing. You don't want to distress your animals. Other issues, I think with the HumminGuru particularly, I don't think you're cleaning. If I just get a record out here, just grab one for just to try and explain this. So my gut feeling is that you've sort of got the best cleaning ability or performance is maybe from a centimetre in from the outer edge to perhaps a couple of centimetres in from the label, perhaps. So this sort of band in the middle. And I it's hard to quantify this, but my gut feeling is that that's better cleaned than the edge, the lead in or the run out. And that's definitely a kind of a feeling I've got. And one other thing I would mention, and I think this is probably down to the drying, but there's no question that it generates static. And in certain instances, static was quite a problem afterwards. Now, I've got all sorts of very expensive static, removing machines, so to speak. I mean, I've got the DS Audio Ion 001, but that's like, that's £1,600 or whatever of static device. And if you haven't got something like that, generating a lot more static might be, again, it might be something that's just makes it more trouble than it's worth. So again, bear that one in mind. And the other thing I want to mention are these. Now, these are the 10-inch and 7-inch adapters. Now, how this works is you pop your 7-inch single in here and you slide these little rubber kind of grips down to hold it, and then you pop that in the machine and clean it as if it was a 12-inch LP, with one exception. You have to get the HumminGuru dipstick, which is, I don't know where that is at the moment, and increase the level of the fluid in the tank. And on here, I think you can see, I showed this in more detail in the previous video, but you've got the 12-inch line, which is where the water level is at the moment, and then probably 5 or 6 mil higher, a 7-inch line. Now, even when the water level is correctly increased to the 7-inch line, and you put this in, the last 3 or 4 millimeters of the playing, the music containing part of the groove didn't actually reach the water. So it wasn't cleaned at all. Neither, obviously, was the run-out groove. Now, 7-inch singles all have the same size label. It's smaller than than an LP, obviously. And you could, maybe I could have, because of the way this tank is in here, I could have actually added in extra fluid in here to make sure that the full playing area of the single was submerged and thereby cleaned. But of course, when you get to the drying stage and it drains that and puts it into this tank, that 7-inch line is very close to the ceiling of the tank. So my suspicion is that this wastewater, receptacle stroke reservoir would overflow, and then you're overflowing into the machine, and that seems very unwise to me. So, potentially dangerous. Who knows? So basically, honest advice is if you play 7-inch singles and you want to clean those on your record cleaning machine, I would think very, very seriously about about not buying HumminGuru, because I don't think these really are up for the job. If anyone else has got one and their experience differs, do let me know. If anyone's got a HumminGuru and they've filled it up well past the 7-inch line and it hasn't overflown into the machine, again, do let me know. But that's, I'm not going to advise someone do something dangerous or that's likely to, violate a warranty or some such thing. And is there anything else that's kind of relevant? Well, I think the only other thing is distilled water isn't free. So, you fill this thing up. It holds about a third of a litre, just over a third of a litre. Depends when you buy it. I mean, that's, it could be £2-3 worth of distilled water. You put it in there and maybe you get 20 records cleaning out of it. But if you've got, it just depends how you use your hi-fi and how you play your records. I kind of think these things are best done in batches. So you fill your bath up and then you clean through a whole bunch of records maybe, and then put them away. Drain the machine, empty the tank out, clean it up and put it away. To sort of clean one record and then, maybe a week or two later clean another record, or, a couple of days later clean 2 or 3 records, and then 5 days later clean one more record. It's like you've got dirty fluid sitting around for a long time, and I just again, it's something I don't feel hugely comfortable with, whereas with the a vacuum machine, you squirt on as much record as you want, which is probably 2 or 3 millilitres per clean. That's fresh cleaning fluid. It does its job. It's vacuumed away to waste. It's not like in these where it's being recirculated, sitting in a vat, going through a filter, cleaning a dirty record again, sitting there, going through a filter, being reused over and over. It's just something to consider. And I think the only other thing that I mentioned, of course, is the time. On a vacuum machine, I mean, the lorry craft with the arm that moves across is actually, as vacuum machines go, quite a slow machine. I like it for its thoroughness, but a VPI, Clear Audio, Okinoki, that type of machine, they're even quicker. You could probably clean both sides of a record in 3 or 4 minutes easily. So, noise, convenience, speed, those are considerations. The 7-inch adapter, I think, is quite a, I think that's really quite an issue, because, I mean, I don't really play 7-inch singles, but obviously plenty of people do. And if you'd spent £500 and you realised you can't clean your singles, that you can only clean the first half of the song on each single, that would really piss me off. Yeah, I think the only other thing I will mention now is that I have got a degritter in, and before wrapping this review up and making a final conclusion, I just wanted to give that like a couple of goes just to see if I can work out which of these traits are specific to ultrasonic and which are specific to the machine. So the first thing I'd say is the noise. The degritter doesn't freak Toby out, my cat. So that's a big plus there. And the drying process of the degritter is in 3.5 minutes, it does a better job of drying a record than the HumminGuru does in 10. I haven't yet gone through all the cleaning regimes and all the rest of it, so I'm not going to comment on whether it cleans better. I think inevitably it will do. My first gut feeling is that it does clean more thoroughly and evenly, but it doesn't mean to say that this one doesn't, because it does. It cleans records. It does that final polishing of the glass extremely well. What I have hesitated, if you've already got a vacuum machine and you don't mind having two machines, I think you could give this sort of an absolute unreserved recommendation, because in combination it works phenomenally well. In isolation, I don't think it does the job thoroughly enough, and for my money, I'd probably stick with a vacuum machine. Okay, I think that pretty much covers it all, and well done for staying with me if you have, and I will get back to the subject pretty soon with a review of the degritter. Okay, thanks very much. See you all soon. Bye-bye.